So, Texas police have searched 83,000 flock cameras nationwide to track down a woman who got an abortion. This is a story from about a year ago now, but it's just resurfacing here this past week, and this is coming out of Fact Post News here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, comrades and friends, my name is Dr. Phillips, and we're going to talk about this here today. So, regardless of what side of the aisle that you're on, I want to start by saying that there's really no way to win the abortion debate. Obviously, there's two sides to the coin. Some people think that life begins at conception. Other people think that life begins as soon as the baby is born. I think generally a lot of reasonable people can say that yes, you don't want to have an abortion at 7, 8, 9 months into term. But I think also a lot of people will point out that if you did need an abortion, you don't want to potentially make it so doctors aren't able to provide one to women whose health is in jeopardy for having that baby at, let's say, like 8 months, for example, simply because the law may punish abortions after that point if it's not for a medical reason. So, there's both sides to the coin. I can understand where both people are coming from. Me, myself, I'm very pro-choice. I don't think it's any of the government's goddamn business what goes on. But of course, I'm very sympathetic to saying maybe no abortions in like the third trimester unless there's like jeopardy to the mother's life. Like I can get behind something like that for sure. I'm not like an animal here, right? I get it. But I think that comes with making so that doctors don't necessarily have a right to tell you whether or not you can or cannot have one. Like if you feel as if your life is in jeopardy there, then you should probably be able to have some autonomy over your own life. And if you're in a very red state like Texas, the doctors can screw off. But that's always been my argument here. But regardless of that, there's no winning the goddamn abortion debate. It's a very hot, sensitive topic here. But one of the things that I do think that we can sort of come together as Americans is that we do not want to live in a police state like China, whereby we have social credit scores going on and our lives can be ruined simply over the fact that the government can track your every single move. Now, they don't just need flock cameras to do this, but flock cameras have been in the news here for about the last month or so now. They already got, tracking right here, right? Your cell phone, right? Your cell phone tracks you every which way. If you want to just even walk, from one point in your house to the other, the cell phone's tracking you. Even your goddamn Wi-Fi routers can track you. I know people are going to say that that's absolute conspiracy nonsense here, but this is well documented now. Well documented. It's not some fringe conspiracy at all in the least. They can actually use the signals of your Wi-Fi to track what rooms you're in your house, for God's sake. So I'm just saying that flock cameras are not the end-all be-all. Internet privacy starts with things like VPN and Tor, and I'm just trying to stay off the grid, not making accounts, blah, 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 paying for things in cash, not having GPS in your car, trying to avoid roads with the flock cameras. Like, there's lots of ways in which you can try to stay anonymous. But flock cameras is just one piece of the puzzle. If the government wants to find you, you're most likely screwed, even if you do everything right. But this is one piece of the puzzle, but it's a piece of the puzzle that I think that we all need to start taking a little bit more seriously because, in theory, this is supposed to be something that would try to catch criminals who are doing bad things. You're on the road, you're doing 150 miles an hour, you're endangering not only your life, at that point you give up the right to your life, but you're endangering the life of everybody else because if you crash in your car into another car while you're going 150 miles an hour, you're not only going to kill yourself, you're going to kill somebody else, which is a big problem. And so that's an issue here. Now, yes, you want to catch those people, and you could use the flock cameras to maybe do so, and presuming that the government has a reason or they have some inclination of you potentially breaking the law. So maybe that an actual cop has to see this happen, and then they can use flock cameras to try and identify you. I get it. But now if we just have in this case, for example, a concerned citizen coming out and saying, hey, look, my friend, I gotta go find my friend or whatever, and I think that they might be getting an abortion or something. Who knows? And then all of a sudden the police are tracking you down and making it so that way you are, potentially being found as a result of these flock cameras across multiple different states because it's a whole entire network. That's a problem to me. That's a problem because that removes your privacy and it just makes it so the government is encroaching on your business when they have absolutely no reason to. Your body, your choice. The government should not be involved in any matters with respects to your own body unless you are a risk to somebody else. Now, I know the conservatives are going to say, well, you are a risk to somebody else because the baby is another person who has rights. And it's like, okay, if the baby is another person who has rights, then how come the tax laws do not treat them as such, right? Like, can we acknowledge that here for a second? Can you claim them on your taxes, for example? Say, well, look, I'm pregnant, bro. Like, that's, like I gotta kind of write that off, right? Like, no, can't do that. Can you have like, I don't know, maybe like a 527 account for them? No, you can't do that. So, at the end of the day here, we don't really treat them as if they're people. Now, in some cases, this does end up happening. You can look at situations such as maybe say when a woman who's pregnant gets murdered and the baby dies as well. Sometimes people get charged with double homicide, for example. But I think it's a case by case basis there. Sometimes, look, I think that you need to. Sometimes I think that you need to potentially be in a situation where you can think critically about something and understands that there's exceptions to the rule. Yes, like if you have like a domestic abuser, for example, and they killed a woman and the baby, yeah, maybe that's the case. Maybe you have to go after them for double homicide. But in the event of like where most abortions take place, it's like most of them occur within like the first few months, and so like I don't really see, like, I know you say it's a clump of cells. Yes, there's the potential for life. I get it. Maybe it sounds harsh, but like, I think that there's a distinction between, like just the clump of cells versus say, like almost a fully developed baby who's like, say like 8 months along, for example, right? Like I think that there's a distinction there. But either way, the government shouldn't be tracking people like this. Like, why would you want to live in a 1984 police state where the government can see your every move and track you down? Because then all it takes is like maybe some like anonymous tip, for example. You get some anonymous tip, and then maybe from there, yeah, people start looking into you. They get a warrant from some judge somewhere, and then all of a sudden you can be arrested for something that you had no business being arrested for. And they're always going to use this under the guise of we're preventing crime, and then that crime is something that we want to try to avoid. And so as a consequence of that, the United States is safer, and if you're safer, then there's going to be less there's going to be people are going to recognize this, and they're going to say, well, there's going to be even less crime moving forward because people know they're going to be caught, and yada yada yada. But at the end of the day, that's just not how I see it. There's arguments to both sides of the coin. I understand it, but like when somebody's reporting somebody with respects to this, and they're saying like, look, like this lady has taken some abortion pills, like we got to kind of track her down, and the government's just going to go off their word like that, and they're going to invade your privacy like that? I don't know. But then I understand the flip side of the coin. You could say, okay, well, let's say there's a credible kidnapping, for example. Yeah, maybe you go and you try to use the flat cameras to save somebody. But that seems to me that's only being what it's partially used for. Now, this woman never ended up getting charged, right? So she was lucky. But there's always that potential. And what happens when they go across state lines and they get the abortion pills instead of through the mail, like in this case? Maybe they end up being in a situation where they come back, people notice, they get reported, they track the flat cameras, they start looking at all these different records, bank records, healthcare records, cell phone records, the whole 9 yards, and poof, before you know it, you're in prison. And that's a big issue, I think. I don't want to live in a totalitarian state. I don't want the government telling me what the hell I can and cannot do. It's none of their goddamn business. Very libertarian in that regards, and you probably should be libertarian too. Because why would you want the nanny state constantly policing you? And nanny in a bad way, not nanny in the good way, which is where we get things like universal healthcare. Like, can we just get universal healthcare and then like no flat cameras? Dude, like, how much better the world would be? I don't know. I mean, you can have them, but you got to set laws on them. Right? They cannot use these things to prosecute crimes. I'm sorry. End of discussion. There should be a Supreme Court case about this. I'm sorry. That's probably what should happen. And if there is one, they're probably not doing that good of a job because, well, let's be honest, this stuff is coming up in the news more and more, and this things that we just don't want to see. So anyways, guys, I could rant all day and night. I know sometimes I go in circles a little bit here, but if you did enjoy the video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for some more content. My name is Dr. Ian Phillips, and we're going to talk to you guys later. Peace.